Let's start off by breaking down Ram changes. She didn't really get like a whole lot, but I think her changes are kind of nice and they do have some application for sure. The first one being the fact that Daro goes further now is actually pretty nice. Because it means that like more often you're actually going to be able to get something from whiff punishing somebody. It's pretty good because like she's actually kind of weak midstream. That's like one of her downsides as a character. This isn't like a huge buff, but it is kind of nice. There's also some situations where like if you get a counter hit, if you do something like this, they'll combo into sweep now. You have to be kind of close, but I swear this works. Yeah, there you go. So like it just kind of helps her out in some situations. It also makes it when you like whiff punish certain moves, you actually get like higher reward. So for example, with like Maze 2S, you can actually whiff punish this move, and Daro goes far enough to actually convert off of it now, which is really, really good. There's a couple other things like this, like Chip's Far Slash, for example. You can whiff punish it with 2D, and Daro will actually connect now. So there's just like specific situations where it actually matters a lot. Off certain like air hits even, you're more likely to be able to get a conversion. It also makes it to where you're more likely to be able to get this type of conversion with PRC. Normally at this range, you wouldn't be able to do that pre-patch. So that's also kind of nice, because she goes further. The other change she got is that J214S will actually cause a float state even on a standing hit. Before, this move would just like leave them standing, and it was like kind of awkward because you didn't really know like who was plus and who wasn't. Now it just knocks them down, and it's a hard knockdown, so you can run in, just apply offense. This is only really useful in a couple of situations, but it is nice to have. So like if you get a non-counter hit JH, you can actually just cancel into J214S and it'll give you a hard knockdown, which is pretty cool. Or if you, if someone like blocks your JH and you go to frame trap them with J214S after. So now if you frame trap somebody with it, it will actually give you a knockout, instead of just being this like weird standing state. So that's pretty good. It also makes it to where something like this will convert into a knockdown as well. Because before, Ram could do this, and she couldn't really combo into anything, right? Like, you could like sometimes land in time in 2K, but it wouldn't combo into 2D, because you just fall out of range. And honestly, getting the 2K is pretty hard. Like, I'm missing it every single time right now, because the timing is so strict. But now you can just do something like this and get a knockdown from it, which I think is really good. And even in a matchup like Soul, it has some application. Versus Soul, Ram had kind of a weird punish on Soul doing Gunflame before. It was like weirdly inconsistent and like didn't do that much damage. So you can do that. I actually messed up the combo because it's so weirdly timed to do that. But now she can just do this. It even does more damage than that did. And also you can side swap off of it. You can just do air dash over and now they're in the corner instead of you. So again, another one of these like small changes, but it's actually pretty nice to have, I think. It did nerf her JH hitbox. It is technically, it doesn't hit as far down and it doesn't have as much of a hitbox behind her anymore. As you can see, I still crossed Soul up with it anyways. So it's technically worse, but so far from everything I've tested, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that it did actually get rid of, that I don't personally care that much, is you can't do the rising overhead with it anymore. It doesn't hit low enough. But I never thought this mix-up was good, and I never did it, so I don't really mind that it's gone. Now, for some other character changes that are worth noting, Soul got quite a few that I want to talk about. Soul being, you know, the best character in the game, as he was, and he still is in my opinion. I still think he's super strong, definitely the best character in the game. They did give him some key changes that I think are important to note and should help people in the matchup a little bit. The first one being his 6S. So this button used to have a way bigger hitbox before the patch, and one of the things it meant is that you couldn't 6P it. Before, if you tried to 6P this move, you would just get counter hit. Now they made it to where you can 6P it. It will not hit you out of your 6P. If you're too far away, it'll likely just clash because you're not actually hitting Soul anymore. But it does mean at this type of range, you have a counter poke option, right? They also increased the hurt box around his feet during the startup. So Just as an example, I'm going to press 2K and get counter hit. No, I'm going to press 2K and I'm going to stuff it. So this works from like really far away, as you can see. And you can do this with even better things like 2D for a full combo. You know, you'll have to explore it with every character, but this change is very important because this gives you two different ways that you can now counter this move in neutral. And something to keep in mind with Soul's success is that it's actually not that rewarding for whiff punishing you. So if I have Soul here, do this in the Bandit Revolver, and I get whiff punished, I can do it. You'll see that it doesn't even combo. This move does a ton of damage on counter hit, but without counter hit, it's actually not that rewarding. So if you're pressing buttons really early trying to stuff it and you happen to get whiff punished for pressing buttons early, it's really not the end of the world. So I think this is a pretty important change. It's still a really good button and you will still die if you get counter hit, but you do have some options against it now. Another change he got is that Bandit Revolver is actually, it has way more recovery now. And what this does, specifically Air Bandit Revolver, the grounded version doesn't, but Air Bandit Revolver has so much more recovery now that's actually punishable on block. If they do not charge it, it is just straight up punishable. I think it's usually like -7 or -8. I think it can be like -6 or -5 if you block like at your feet. But generally speaking, most characters will be able to punish it with something. Yeah, if it hits anywhere like on your head or your chest, you'll be able to punish it now. And this also applies if it whiffs, so now you can more easily whiff punish this move. If they do the charge version, it is safer on block. So this, I actually won't be able to punish. Oh, I guess I did punish it because I blocked it really high up. So like that, I won't be able to because the pushback was so good. So like the charge version is still pretty safe, but one thing that is nice is that it has more pushback now. So you never have these weird situations where he's like really close to you and you don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't know if you're supposed to mash throw or try to mash your fastest normal. You don't have to deal with that anymore. He's just always spaced away from you. It still is a decent like anti-air, but if you just block it, you can usually take your turn or just outright punish him now. Or just get away from the situation entirely. The other change that's worth talking about is they changed his Far Slash a little bit. They lowered the proration, so if you get hit by Far Slash, it will do less damage. It's Soul Bad Guy. Less damage still means he's going to kill you, so it doesn't really matter, but I guess it's worth noting. What's actually important here is that they increased the pushback on Far Slash. So this isn't noticeable really on normal block, like you're not going to really notice it. But if you FD the Far Slash now, generally 5H will whiff. This actually gives you like an opportunity to like whiff punish him with something if he's not paying attention to his offense. So Soul actually has to kind of pay attention to how you're defending against him and not press 5H if you're FDing. Granted, that's not too hard to do, but it is something. They gave you a little bit more of an option in the situation. If he's just doing like Far Slash or whatever, it doesn't help you that much. Like this will still work on FD. It's just mostly that the frame trap after Far Slash will actually whiff now. So Kai's another character that got changed, and it's kind of funny because he didn't get a lot of changes. And the one change he got doesn't actually sound like that big of a deal. But he might actually be like one of the more improved characters this patch. So what they did is they basically made some adjustments to Stun Dipper now. And it makes it way more consistent, and it makes the knockdown after it way better. So now if he actually like whiff punishes you, even from max range, Stun Dipper will pretty much always connect. And they reduced the knockback it has at the end, so he can actually run up and apply pressure now. This just completely puts together his game plan so much better than it was before. This allows him to actually like whiff punish you in neutral into a knockdown to get his turn started. It doesn't sound like a big change, but it just lets Kai do what Kai is supposed to do so much better than he could before. He did also get some changes to Dragon Install. I'm not entirely sure how good those actually are. They might be valuable. We'll see. But just this one change is actually one of the bigger changes in this patch. Just the fact that this works so much more consistently. It'll even work better if you're closer to them. There's always this weird range where like if you're kind of close, they would fall out of it and it wouldn't combo. That doesn't happen nearly as much now. So this is a really good change for Kai and just makes him way more consistent. He still has some problems with his offense, but if you're a Kai player, you're pretty happy with this, I think. Mei is another character that got a lot of changes, though they're not really good for her. In my opinion, she might be the most nerfed character. She might be even more nerfed than Soul, just at least relative to how strong they were before. So they nerfed the hitbox and hurtbox on Fire Slash and 2S. Fire Slash doesn't hit quite as low to the ground anymore, so some moves can actually low profile it, such as Stroke the Big Tree. So that's nice. It also doesn't catch jumps as easily, I think. And 2S just has a bigger hurtbox on it now. And let me tell you, it is a lot bigger. As I showed earlier, this move is so much easier to whiff punish now. Like, you have to be really far away to not be able to whiff punish this move. You know, even if I just hit Fire Slash, it's super easy to whiff punish this move now. In my opinion, her hitboxes and hurtboxes were her best qualities before. It wasn't Dolphin, it wasn't just her damage, it was actually her hitboxes. The fact that they nerfed these this much is pretty significant, especially in the matchups that she already had some issues with. Like as Ram, the main thing that gave me issues in this matchup were Mei's 2S and her Fire Slash. The fact that both of them are worse now is not a good thing for Mei. The other thing they did is they technically buffed her command grab, but it's actually more of a nerf. So her command grab now is different on hit, where it leaves them closer. They bounce closer to Mei. This is technically a buff in the sense that you can combo off of it midstream, right? You can do something like that. The Oki off of this isn't very good, and it doesn't even do that much more damage than it did without the combo, because they lowered the damage on the command grab itself. So even though it is technically a buff, it's not really a buff, because the thing is, now, if you command grab somebody at like this range, it doesn't even wall bounce anymore, because they don't go as far from the ground bounce. So she actually has to be pretty much in the corner when she command grabs you to get the wall bounce. So I think this is like, you know, while it does have a technical upside, I think this is mostly a nerf to her command grab. So she got her normals nerfed and her command grab is a little bit worse. She did get one buff that I think is meaningful, and that is that they changed her 5H to have literally like 10 frames less of recovery. So now her 5H is only like -4 or -5 on block. You used to actually be able to punish this move on block. It is that bad. It was like -15 or something. But now it's just safe. And this is pretty good actually, because it just gives her an extra button in her pressure that's like reasonable to press. And as the Mei, you know, you can start getting away with some stuff where you do like 5H and then dash up and do Cold Slash again, right? Because they have to worry about the threat of you canceling into Dolphin. They have to worry about you canceling into H Dolphin. I think this is a pretty reasonable buff, because this button was not good before. But it doesn't outweigh the nerfs that she got. So I think Mei is one of the bigger losers this patch, maybe the biggest loser, at least in my opinion. She's still a good character, but she is a bit worse. Nago got a pretty ridiculous change that, if you just look at the change list, it didn't seem that crazy. But what they did is they changed how much blood he gets back from doing his Far Slash. So I'm going to raise my blood gauge a little bit. So we're at like a little over half. Now the third hit of his Far Slash drastically reduces his blood gauge. Like, look how much I just reduced it by. That was almost an entire bar that it got reduced by. And that's on block. It does even more if they get hit by it. And this to me is actually absurd. I don't know why they decided to do this. This makes his blood gauge so much easier to manage. It's just like, it's actually crazy how good this is. Like, look how much that reduced. It's just gone. The blood gauge is gone. He doesn't have blood anymore. Like, if a Nago needs to reduce their blood gauge, they can just do something like, they can literally just do this, right? Just that into like, whatever. Now all of your blood gauge is gone. Literally all of it. So this change, when I saw it, I was like, okay, you know, it'll probably do like a little bit less blood. No, it actually removes like an entire bar of blood. This change is crazy, and I think it actually makes Nago a better character. I don't think a lot of changes on this change list changed a character. I think this actually improves Nago, and he was already really good, so that's terrifying. Now, Anji got maybe the weirdest change in this patch that I really don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how good it will actually be for him. They gave him the ability to do the Fujin follow-ups even on whiff. So if you whiff the move, you can still do the follow-ups. I was kind of surprised it didn't work this way when he released, because it's basically a Rekka, and usually you can do Rekkas on Whiff, but you couldn't do any of the follow-ups on Whiff before. Now that's not weird, right? Like being able to do this on Whiff, that makes sense. The strange thing is you can actually do the follow-ups before Fujin even comes out. And it looks really freaking weird, dude. Like this just looks like a bug to me. I don't know how I feel about this. So I don't know what this actually does for him realistically. I think the important thing here is that one issue with Anji's mix-up before was that you would always just kind of look for Fujin, because that's when the mix-up would happen, right? He would do like, you know, whatever button into Fujin, and you would know like, okay, I gotta be ready for the mix-up now. Now that he can do the follow-ups before Fujin comes out, it actually means you have to be ready for the follow-ups earlier, which I think is pretty relevant in terms of how his mix-up works. It does make it harder to react to. Realistically, how good that is, I don't know yet. I need to fight Anji some more, but it seems promising. And there might be some other applications. It might be good for neutral, might be good for combos, I don't really know. But it's one of the weirder changes for this patch for sure. Now we're going to talk about Ino, and I think she is probably the most improved character this patch by a significant margin. The first thing they did is her air dash is now faster, and you can immediately tell. She is just zooming across the screen now. Personally, I always thought it was kind of weird that she moved so slow when this game came out, and it felt really off about her. Now she feels much more like her past self, and this is a very good buff. This means the range at which she's a threat, the range that you have to think about hover dash, is so much further than it was before. It means that she can take advantage of like certain OP situations better because she can actually get across the screen faster. It might even affect combos, I don't really know, I don't play Ino. I imagine this change is going to open up a lot of possibilities for her, and it's just generally going to make her feel a lot better to play and help her get around some like difficult neutral situations for herself. Some other things she got, 8 stroke now actually leaves her closer. It's not by a lot, and I don't entirely know what options this gives her, but it definitely leaves her a little bit closer, which means like her pressure will be a little bit better. She'll be able to more consistently convert off of it. It's just like a nice quality of life thing for the most part. Her 2K and her 2D now have less pushback, which means that whenever she hits you with this, she'll be able to more consistently do good no Oki off of it, especially when you pair it with the fact that she has the faster hover dash. So if I could stop messing this up, you know, she's able to get over there quicker and actually apply a mix-up now. So not like a big change, but it'll definitely just make her feel a little bit better to play. And they also gave her 5H ground bounces on standing hit. And what this gives her is she can cancel 5H into 8 stroke. Yeah, so you can do like close slash 5H. And this gives her a hard knockdown. And you can, you know, throw out the note and start mixing up your opponent from this. There might be other combos off of this, I don't know, I don't play Ino, but it certainly seems like a pretty promising thing to have. So all in all, she just feels way more complete, and she'll have a lot more options, a lot more situations, and she's going to be scarier from even further away now, because, you know, even if she's over here, you got to worry about hover dash, you know? So I think she improved a lot, and I'm kind of curious to see what other things Ino players come up with her changes. I've already seen some new combo routes that she has access to as well. So she's going to be very scary now, I think.